Yeah. Wyatt begins in like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yo! Welcome to Wyatt! And I'm your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans. Grr, woof! God damn it, woof, 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 woof! Hi! I said hi! To all my YouTubers out there, if you like what you hear and if you like what you see, then click all of them subscribe buttons at the bottoms of all of your screens. And because I know you loves me, I know you do, give me some likes. And because I always like to know what you are thinking, give me some feedback because it's greatly appreciated. It really, really is. Okay, today's special guest on Wyatt is Mr. Clarence A. Haynes. He's the author of the new urban fantasy glam horror novel titled The Ghosts of Gwendolyn Montgomery. And y'all is getting rave reviews. And to be honest with you, I'm scared. I'm really, really scared. So I need to talk to him. All right. So without further ado, Wyatt, I said Wyatt, gives a B&B a bold and bodacious welcome to Clarence A. Haynes, a freelance editor and author of the new urban fantasy glam horror novel titled The Ghosts of Gwendolyn Montgomery. Dang, y'all. Good golly, Miss Molly, I'm already scared. I'd be scared. So talk at me, Mr. Haynes. How the hell are ya?
I'm very well. It's so good to be here, and I appreciate you having me. Really appreciate it.
Listen, my pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to pull up to the Wyatt mic. And listen, I got to mention something, man, that we talked about a little bit before we started the show. You've got one hell of a bedroom voice, my brother.
Sometimes, when when I wake up, it is like Barry White low. So some people enjoy that, but it tends to the bass tends to diminish the deeper I get into the day, and then also there's a lot of fluctuation depending on how happy or excited I am. But thank you. I actually come from a family of singers. Like my cousin can sing, my aunt can sing, my grandmother could sing, my mother could sing, and I have a decent voice. They can sing much better than I can. So there's something in my family with voice. So.
Well, you know what? Let me tell you something. I had to get that off my chest. I am sure that in your time, you have whispered a lot of sweet nothings into a lot of ears, but that's another story. When you come, listen, when you come back to Wyatt, that's going to be a main topic of our conversation.
It's so funny because I always figuring out how to balance what I share about my personal life. I'm very much Mr. No, let it be about the work. But then there's a character in the book, the second main character named Fonzie, that some people are like, how much of that is based on your life? And I'm like, wow. So, but that's another conversation.
This is your life, my brother. But anyway. Listen, in all seriousness, Clarence, you have one hell of an impressive background. I want our audience to know all about it, so here goes. Clarence A. Haynes is the author of the lauded urban fantasy glam horror novel, The Ghosts of Gwendolyn Montgomery, and co-author of actor and producer Omar Epps' acclaimed young adult Afrofuturist science fiction fantasy series, Nubia, The Awakening and the Reckoning. And Haynes is also the author of the middle grade nonfiction work, The Legacy of Jim Crow, which examines the history of discriminatory laws in America. And you all listen to this. He has helped shape top-selling fiction titles like The 100th Queen, Scarlet Odyssey, Legacy of Lies, These Toxic Things, and the Wall Street Journal bestseller We Lie Here, and the Washington Post and Amazon charts bestseller The Vine Witch, along with its sequels. And in addition to working as a freelance editor for publishers at Penguin Random House, Hachette, and Amazon, Haynes has penned articles for Newsday, LitHub, The Root, and The Griot, among other publications. Now, look, my brother, don't break your hand patting yourself on the back. That is a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know. I enjoy what I do. I grew up in New York in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and immigrant parents, immigrant family who immigrated from Panama.
Wow.
And I have my best friend who's a psychotherapist once said to me, "Oh, Clarence, you're a hustler. You always just got to make sure things are happening." And I don't even really perceive myself that way. But then when people sort of point out, like, "Clarence, you do this, you do that," and I'm like, okay, there's something to this. I just think, there are opportunities to be had. I think I want to both be of service to my communities and, make sure I'm a full-time freelancer. So make sure I'm okay while doing everything. But also just try my best to do work that speaks to the soul and that I think is important and perhaps, particularly with my writing now, that isn't so readily found out there. So yeah, but I definitely have that old school New York hustle. Like I agree that I sit with what my friend has said to me, and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's there.
And you know what you need there to succeed? You have to have that grind. Yeah. You got to have the hustle.
Yeah, to each their own. I do believe, I'm really heartened that right now we're having a lot more conversations, particularly in the Black community, around rest, around balance. We can't always just be working. I'm working. I'm also single and don't have children, and so that allows me a certain level of freedom in terms of the amount of projects I can take on. And then some of what I do for work, I'm very blessed. I'm very fortunate that it's just stuff that I love. So it doesn't even sometimes feel like work. So,
well, look, man, before we continue, let me say this. With that bedroom voice of yours, you ain't going to be single much longer. But like I said, that's what...
in New York. It's New York.
Look, that's for another show. We'll talk about all that in another show. But today, our focus is your new work, The Ghosts of Gwendolyn Montgomery, which is receiving stellar reviews. Now, we're going to get the full details later in the show, but as a teaser, give us that 25-word or less elevator pitch.
Okay, so The Ghosts of Gwendolyn Montgomery is about a high-powered publicist who has a secret mystical past. Oh. And as we get to learn more about who she really is, we find out her mysterious connection to an Afro-Latina queer psychic who runs a botanica in the South Bronx, who comes with a warning that ghosts are about to invade our world.
Ooh, that's scary. I'd be scared. That's scary.
Yeah, and it starts off with she's the main character, Gwendolyn. She's really fab, really fashionista, is putting on a big show at the Brooklyn Museum, big runway show, music concert as well, and it goes terribly, terribly wrong. Something really, horrible happens, and then that sort of starts us on our journey to finding out who she is and her connection to the medium Fonzie and sort of understanding the larger world of the book.
Oh, that's like Dark Shadows and Collinwood and Barnabas Collins and all of.
Yeah, it's kind of it's interesting because immediately some people are like, oh, it's gothic, it's going to be dark, but I think it really is very contemporary, and so her the main character is someone who she works once again, New York hustler. She works hard. She's a striver. She really is also very invested in having what she perceives to be a glamorous life, and it totally speaks to contemporary sensibilities. What I think a lot of readers would identify for themselves as a glamorous life, and then as the story progresses, we get to learn more about why she's making these decisions. It's not necessarily from the healthiest of places, and I wanted to interrogate some of what that could be about for the character. So
interesting, Clarence. Well, man, let me ask you, why the sci-fi fantasy genres? What made you think this will suit me? This will really showcase my voice, my talent.
Wonderful question. It's my love. It is my I am a sci-fi fantasy person just through and through. It is probably the biggest in terms of like worldwide tribe that I say I belong to, outside of like blackness. Yeah, that's like my other big thing. And so I always just knew almost any story that comes to me, there's going to be a fantasy sci-fi component. We say in the industry a lot of times speculative fiction,
Right.
and so it's just my love. It's just my passion. A huge speculative fiction icon was Octavia Butler. She's one of my favorite authors. I got to meet her before she passed. Yeah, and she told me it was when I was doing editing. I was once a full-time associate editor at Random House. And when I was doing editing, she told me, she was like, well, you need to write. We need your voice. And it took me a while to get there, but I'm happy to say finally starting to produce work of my own. And why also it's so important for me to do that in the context of speculative fiction is because I feel there are still so many stories that haven't been shared about the Black experience, the gay experience, queer experience, the Afro-Latina experience. We really are just scratching the surface. It's gotten so much better over the past few years than what it once was when Butler was publishing. She was barely anyone else was doing what she was doing, but there's still just a lot for us to share and say using speculative fiction as the genre in which to share these stories. And so yeah, that's really why I did it. And then particularly my characters again are very contemporary. So there's not sort of, like castles,
Right.
like
And drawbridges and
it's literally like, I got my text saying
I'm in the 21st century.
Yeah, it is totally like I'm getting on the subway. So yeah.
Okay, I got you. Well, that leads me to my next question. You probably answered part of it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Clarence, it's my understanding that the future of Black sci-fi is promising with trends such as Afrofuturism going mainstream, and you have Black women leading the narrative, leading the charge. So do you agree, and why?
I do. I think we will see the way the winds blow in terms of publishing. Publishing is known for really like finding a trend and riding it till you're like, Lord have mercy. You can't ride this trend no more. And so I think Afrofuturism is still seen as this hot new thing that publishers are figuring out. I would say that after the murder of George Floyd, there was this reckoning by so many industries, as we know. And so we saw a flourishing of acquisitions where Afrofuturism was part of that. I think it's gotten a little quieter, but I also know that just in terms of my peers and contemporaries that we're not going to stop doing what we're doing. So I agree. And different people have different definitions of Afrofuturism. Like some people use it as sort of a synonymous term with basically Black sci-fi fantasy, which I'm fine with, and other people have very specific parameters through which they would use it. And I do think Black women are leading the way as they usually do.
So true. Yeah, that's so true.
So yeah. And it's so heartened to be part of it, and then think about what do I have to say, what do I have to contribute, that's not necessarily been said before, so.
Okay, well, what I want to know is, what is an urban fantasy glam horror novel? Define that.
That's it?
Yeah.
Oh, what is it?
What is that? Listen, there ain't no trick questions up in here. There's no trick questions. I just want to know what an urban fantasy glam horror novel is, because it sounds so appetizing.
What it is speaking to, so I am a big, even though this is a work of speculative fiction, it's a work of genre fusion. So the reason why it's glam horror urban fantasy, sexy glam horror urban fantasy, I'm forgetting the language, right, is because it's a mixture of contemporary paranormal fantasy, horror, mystery thriller elements, romance, and I feel like there's one more category I could slot it into. But those are that's everything is in that mix. And so, like, for instance, the main character, we meet her at a time when she's met this new dude who is really turning her on and is lovely. And we're not understanding why, though she's holding back. She has a lot of reticence about things becoming too serious. Then the other main character, Fonzie, we learn that he's reeling from heartache from his ex-boyfriend, Raphael, who wanted to have a certain type of relationship. Suffice to say, I'll let readers dive in for themselves. And so Fonzie starts to get with a ghost, which is forbidden from terms of the rules of the particular order that he belongs to. And so I wanted to use the paranormal, and I wanted to use the speculative fiction lens to sort of explore these matters of the heart. And so that's why, like, we put all these words together, because all of it is sort of in the mix. And I'm really hoping, we live in a post-Sinners world. Right. And what I was really heartened by when I saw Sinners, and I wrote this before Sinners, even though it came out after, but to see, like, they're doing a lot of stuff around intrigue and character development and mystery and romance before we get then to the vampires doing the thing in the showdown, so I was like, oh wow, there's all of this stuff in the mix. And then what Sinners is technically considered a horror film, but the things that would make it a horror film really didn't come until significantly into the second half of the film. We just got hints, and I was just like, there's and I'm hoping now, like, for viewers, readers, people who consume narratives in whatever form, and then particularly narratives that are of the African diaspora that are telling the stories of Black folks, that we can become accustomed to this sort of mix. Because I think that's why so many of us found the movie so refreshing, because we just had all these elements that were put together in a way that we've never quite seen before. So
okay. I have to ask you this, Clarence. The ghost that you talked about, Dating Fonzie, I believe, right?
Mm.
Okay. Does that ghost have a Barry White bedroom voice?
I see where you're going there. No, the ghost name is Ahmed Day, and I am he's a very I can't say much about it because he's a very mysterious ghost. But I will say this: the character of Fonzie is based on my experiences being gay in New York and dating.
Okay.
And he's like he's Panamanian American. My family's immigrated, as I said, here from Panama, and yeah, it was definitely inspired by this idea of being in the mix and sometimes not really knowing what you want. And I definitely try to put a lot of that into the character, even though there are differences between Fonzie and me. So, for instance, like Fonzie is way nicer than I am. Like things he puts up with, I'd be like, "Are you crazy?"
I'm scared of you now.
So,
Oof.
but nonetheless, it was super. I tried my best to use some of my experiences and some of my yearning or things that I didn't fully understand what was going on, or places where I felt hurt,
Oh.
to put that into the character. Also, you should know, and I think you're going to appreciate this. I wrote an essay, and at one point when I wrote an essay about this particular issue. At one point when I was drafting, and my editor said, the story itself, the arc, the plot, everything we're good. It's good. I'm feeling it. She said, but we need to deepen your characters. They're still kind of flat. You're holding back. And so I
Oh.
journaled, and then I put on a whole bunch of Tony Braxton and Babyface, and and I just and I wrote about my history. I was crying, and then writing. I
Oh.
looked crazy, but
Oh.
it was like the process through which then I was able to establish a deeper connection with the characters, better understand who they were, and not be so afraid to let their emotions really be on the page. So
Oh, cool. Okay. I tell you what, let us shift gears and let us travel down the corridors of time so we can learn about your backstory. So, you said you were born and raised in New York, correct?
correct.
Okay. Now, I like to ask my guests this special question because sometimes it can give like a window into who he or she is today. So, tell us, Clarence, what were you like as a little boy, a little nipper? Give us like three qualities, attributes that best describe you.
That is the first time since I've been talking about the book someone has asked me that.
Cool.
So I'm taken aback. Go ahead. Okay, three things. I was hyper.
Oh, okay.
I would act out. So I was raised by my mother and grandmother because my mother worked for the MTA and often was working nights. My
Ah,
grandmother would watch
right.
me. I would spend the night by her place and go to school from there. And I would watch these, and because my grandmother was very protective, and I was didn't really fit in with the other boys, so she was like, "You don't need to be outside in the streets."
Yeah.
So, but what I would do is I would watch these cartoons and shows or read my comic books, and then I would act them out in her apartment. So I was just hyper. I would just be zipping, acting.
I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah. But it's for this poor elderly woman who's trying to just being a caring person and taking care of her child's child. She must have been something like, why did I why did I sign up for this? So I was very caught up in the things that I read and acting them out. I was very readerly. Comics were my thing from
Me,
really pretty
me
young.
too. Okay, good.
Yeah, comics are, one thing I tell educators particularly, and I think they understand this, but to anyone, I always say, like, don't judge what it is your child might be into reading. Like, you know, I think some people be like, oh, but comics aren't like serious literature. And I can tell folks I was reading pretty advanced stuff at an early age, stuff that now I look at. I was like I was reading the X-Men at like 8 or 7, 8 something, and I was like, what was I like? Some of the themes are so adult and mature, and I didn't fully understand what they were grappling with, but it was just really cool. I could tell it was edgy. It gave me an outlet for all that stuff, and I just think let whatever your kids gravitate to, and it involves reading like the written word in some way, let them gravitate to it, because it's gonna they're gonna associate reading with joy. And so I think that was another thing. And then the what would be number 3? I think the two things I just mentioned were sort of more intrinsic qualities, because the number 3 is, I guess I would just say I was exposed to a lot of New York, the New York of the 70s and 80s at a young age, because my mother worked with MTA, so she had free access to, you know, we could ride the subways for free. And so and she really believed in, we're in New York. let us see New York. And so I saw everything. At a really,
I can only imagine.
People don't know what like Times Square was like, you know, before what it is now. It was so different. Even as a child, I was like, oh my God, what?
It was very seedy, porn shops everywhere.
Yeah, it was woo. But I saw it all from a pretty young age. And so I think what that did for me was I do notice my sensibilities, or like in terms of my professional circles, friendship circles, like I'm known as the one that is like, oh, that's not a big deal. Oh, that's not like, people are like, oh my God, can you? And I'm like, oh, this I'm like, no, there's nothing to be ashamed of being interested in that, or liking that, or wanting to check out that, that's fine. And I do think it was probably just growing up in New York at a certain time, and just being aware from a pretty young age that, there are all sorts of ways that people live, and it's not, you know, it's all good. It's part of the human experience. So.
Okay, my friend, let us fast forward to your work as a freelance editor. I mean, you've worked with high-end publishers, including Penguin, Random House, Hachette, and Amazon. So, Clarence, let me ask you, which of these experiences did you enjoy the most and learn from, and why? Which ones did you enjoy and learn from the most, and why?
I can honestly say they've all been very different experiences, and I've learned from, I can't technically choose, just because it's almost like each experience, each of my roles with these publishing houses have developed a different part of my professional self. So when I was at Random House, for instance, it was really me learning. I was an associate editor. I didn't come up the traditional way in terms of starting off as a editorial assistant or assistant editor. And so it was me really just learning the industry, figuring out what were my publishing interests, what types of books I wanted to help put out in the world. I had a wonderful mentor, and just learning and sort of establishing my publishing self. My work for Hachette and Amazon, that has involved me being more. I was a freelance entity once I started working for those houses. And so then those experiences were much more about me being of service to a particular house. You know, for Hachette, I've done, my editing work has been with the imprint Legacy Lit, which is also the imprint that published the novel. And they do they've done historically nonfiction. So that was like me really getting to develop my nonfiction voice. Whereas my work with Amazon, I've done primarily mystery thrillers and science fiction fantasy. My my love. So those completely different skill sets, just in terms of what I need to do editorially. Of course, as an editor, there are some core approaches that, regardless of the type of book you're working on, you keep in mind. But just what it takes to get a solid nonfiction book to press versus fiction. Different sensibilities, obviously. So it's just been. I just feel like each of these experiences have just been responsible for developing different parts of my publishing. So what I'm grateful for is, I have worked in the performance world. I have done worked a little bit as a singer and model and extra on various productions, and publishing has always been there. And with these other things, when I dipped my toe in them, it felt like such a push. And publishing has always been like, no, what? This is what you're supposed to be doing. Come back to us. Come back to us. Like, that's always been the subtext of my work with these houses. So.
Okay. Now it's time for the Ghosts of Gwendolyn Montgomery. So give us the full synopsis. Give us the rundown on that.
So as I said, the main character, she is a high-powered publicist who lives in Harlem. She has worked really, really hard at this agency called Sublime Creative to make it a mover and shaker. And she's met this wonderful dude, James, and he clearly is enamored with her. She's holding back. We don't know why she's holding back. And then in the midst of this, she's putting on a fashion show that's also serving as a concert at the Brooklyn Museum that's supposed to really help her agency, put them on the map in a super solid way. And I want to say what happens, but something goes terribly wrong with, the runway experience. And it's spooky. And one thing I'm comfortable saying, and I can reveal, it's not I don't think it's too much of a giveaway, is the title character's name, that's not her real name. And so it's a constructed identity. And so we begin to learn who she really is. And this is connected to the Afro-Latina queer psychic who I've mentioned, Fonzie. He runs a botanica in the South Bronx. And how his power works is that ghosts people who have passed, those who are not quite ready to let go, their ghosts, their spirits reside in this in-between place called El Intermedio. And he can sense them. They're usually, for them to remain connected to our world, they've tethered themselves to objects that held sentimental value. And so he can sense when an object has a ghost that's tethered to it, and then he's able to communicate with them in his sleep, and therefore serve as a liaison between the ghost and their loved ones, or the person they're haunting. Sometimes not a loved one. The chapter starts off with a woman who, her husband just passed, and they loved each other, and he's concerned that if he were to fully let go, she'd by herself. But other ghosts are not loving like that, and in fact, most of the ghosts who are in this limbo place, they're hurting. They're There's something about their history and past that was really, really painful, traumatic, and they haven't made peace before they died, and so that's why they're in this in between place. And I wanted to play the title of the novel is meant to be layered. It's both literal ghosts, but it's also meant to speak about the ways in which our past haunts us, and if we don't really reckon with our past, really sit with the ways in which we've been hurt, then the past will reckon with us. And so you see that in how both Gwendolyn and Fonzie are living their lives, but even the concept of ghosts themselves, I wanted to present it as, oh, they weren't at peace, and that's why they're lingering in the afterlife. So.
Well, it sounds like the Ghosts of Gwendolyn Montgomery is intricate and intriguing. I like it. Describe for us your writer's process.
It varies from book to book. I'm working, as I mentioned to you, I'm working on the next book, and because, so for instance, the next book is more of a tapestry of characters. And so I'm finding myself, in some ways it's easier because it's a little less personal, though I do have to take the time to sit with where each character is at and then really present who they are emotionally in a realistic way, in a way that feels true to our experiences. That's one of the things that's very important to me. I don't really like reading things where I'm like, who would do that? Who would say
I know what you mean.
That doesn't make sense. You're just doing that because the person, you need to tell the story, and you need for the story to proceed, you need the person to make this decision when they wouldn't make that decision. And I feel very strongly that every character, it needs to feel grounded in reality, even if the rules of the particular literary universe are fantastic. So I'm realizing it feels different. This next book feels different from Ghosts of Gwendolyn Montgomery, where it's two POVs I'm alternating between. It's a more sort of tighter, propulsive narrative, and it was definitely more personal. It's my solo debut novel, and so I knew I wanted to present, have it be in New York, to present my culture, my history.
Smart.
Thank you. And as we discussed, Fonzie, there's some of my experiences and his experiences, and so it was. It definitely, I think, brought up, I definitely had to reckon with things that I had not really sat with for a while. And so it was just maybe more uncomfortable process in some ways. And I think just also what I wanted to put in the foreground, it dictated what the story would be. And then just in terms of the nuts and bolts, I'm an immersive writer. And so I'm generally, once I've decided what a book is going to be, I'm thinking about it actually for quite a while, and I write in my head. And then I will just sit down and write and write and write. And so usually I'll just be home, just writing. I'm in writer retreat mode now. And so all I'm really doing is getting up, making sure I have nutrition, showering, and then just getting on the page what's in my head, and then being in communication with my publisher, my editor, about the direction of the book and what it needs to be. I don't know any other way to do it, but then to almost just like be in this like almost like altered state where it's nothing, and nothing else is going on but the book. And then what I realize is a bit challenging is I need to be better, at explaining that altered state to people.
Yeah.
I realize people don't understand, and they're like, why aren't I hearing from him, or why does he have to get phone.
Look,
I can't really.
look, as an author, I totally get it because
I can
when I get
imagine.
into my when I get into my groove, that vibe, I have to shut everything off. I'm not talking to people. Where's Wyatt? Where's Wyatt? Wyatt is trying to write a goddamn book.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's and I think that's the biggest. I think it's a mixture of things. I think because it's this idea of being an author, a writer, I think it's both mysterious. I think um folks don't understand to do it right, how immersive, like how much you have to immerse yourself in whatever it is you're writing. But I just don't think also there's any sort of creative endeavor. I just don't think socially in the States that we've really created sufficient space for that to be honored. And so I think
Mm.
that's where I've just noticed, like, I'm like, oh wow, I have to make sure I go out of my way to explain a bit more about the process. So, I know I just think some people don't get it, not in a malicious way, but I just think it's like, oh, I have no, there's not really an understanding of the process. My best friend who's a therapist, psychotherapist, he completely, anytime he doesn't hear from me, he's like, oh, I know what you do. And whereas others, I'm like, oh, I have to get better at explaining. So
I know exactly what you mean. Okay, The Ghosts of Gwendolyn Montgomery is getting great reviews. I'm going to read two. Here's the first one, and I quote: "What a fantastic read. By the first page, I was completely hooked. And while I tried to savor each page in detail within the story, I ended up devouring it. I love the representation, the journey through navigating spirituality along with grief, guilt, identity, and self rediscovery." End quote. Here's number two, and I quote: "I don't normally pick up urban fantasy, but The Ghosts of Gwendolyn Montgomery pulled me in right away and never let go. The book weaves history, culture, and the supernatural into a story that feels full of life, almost like reading a movie. It's smart, passionate, and full of surprises. I'm glad I took a chance on it." End quote. What say you?
oh, I get all like, I just get very emotional when I hear these type of things. I feel seen. I love it when this is exactly what they said is what I was aiming for. I know it's a different experience. I think, and Wyatt, you're so kind. I have gotten some reviews that I don't read tons of the reviews, but I have gotten some that are like, I didn't quite know what was happening, what was going on. And I know my writing style is that I present the information and I present clues, and I'm not really gonna give tons of information that make it obvious about where it's going. That's my writing style. I want to take you on a journey, and I hope that you'll have faith that about where you're going to end up. My next book is it's doing the same thing. I was like, okay, this is my style, clearly. And so I know for some people that's a different way of experiencing a narrative. But what I'm heartened by is that it seems like most people are like, even the ones who are like, at first I wasn't sure, ... And then they're like, oh, and so that makes me really happy. I think sort of the more mixed reactions, it's been much more about like, this is different as opposed to this is bad. And so yeah, but I'm just so happy that people are taking the time with it
Mhm.
and immersing themselves in the narrative. Right now, the audiobook, I'm not sure why it's doing it's shooting up the charts. So so just grateful. And the audiobook narrators did a fantastic job. They are spectacular. Brittany Bradford and Andre Santana just killed it. So people have just been raving about they're both actors. So I'm fine to say their performance really, really excellent. And so for any audiobook people out there, it's a treat.
Well, I have mine.
Thank you, Wyatt.
Listen, I'm part of the Audible book club.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's the Audible charts. I woke up one day, I was like, why is this?
Mm-hmm.
What happened? It just said, shoop, and I'm like, all right, we'll take it.
Listen, congratulations, because it's
Thank
well
you.
deserved. I want to move on and touch on your two other works. First, the Omar Epps collaboration called, it's young adult Afrofuturist science fiction series called Nubia, The Awakening and the Reckoning. And again, you co-authored with Omar Epps. So tell us about it, give us the synopsis, and then tell us how that collaboration came to be.
The Nubia, The Awakening and the Reckoning, it's set in a future New York that's been greatly changed by the climate crisis as well as class divides. And so in this future New York that's surrounded by seawalls, rich people who have been living with cybernetic implants live in a sky city called the Up High that you can only reach via elevators in Central Park, and all the rest of us commoners are living on the ground, dealing with the flooding and the rains and and the poverty. And so there are a group of young people, teenagers, who are the descendants of refugees from a mysterious island off the west coast of Africa named Nubia. And this group, they live in what would be considered the least desirable part of New York. And the young people, they awaken to hidden gifts, hidden powers that they didn't know that they would have.
Wow.
And there are people up high who want to exploit them, exploit these young people for their own benefit. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
And so and all of this, this was Omar's baby. He came up with the core ideas. Like it was all him. And when he presented the project to his agent as something that he wanted to see in book form, of course, most people would expect it was very, very much in the style of a TV show or film. Okay. And so they needed someone to come in and be like, okay, how can we transform this, rework this so it's a book? And so that's how we ended up working together, particularly as just people have known me for being the sci-fi fantasy Afrofuturist person. And he's wonderful to work with, just a lovely, genuine human being who you see, like Omar, that's him. He's not really BSing or putting on airs. And and so that was a really wonderful experience. And it was really, it was interesting as well to, in retrospect, when you're co-writing, co-authoring something, it's really in service to the person who is the primary author, who is the visionary behind the project. So that was my thing, as opposed to like Gwendolyn, where I'm more like, it's almost sort of like, well, how am I honoring like this sort of core vision that I have, and how crazy do I want to be? And I can play in a way where with the Nubia series, I always had to be like, what is it that Omar is saying here? What do I think is going to be an approach to storytelling that is going to be essential to honoring what he wants to do? And then finding ways to put myself in there, here and there, but that was always secondary to honoring his primary thing. There are friends of mine who read the books, and they were like, I know that was like anything that was like flirty or saucy or gay. They're like, oh, that's Clarence. Oh, that's Clarence.
Okay, I got you. I understand.
Yeah, that's Clarence.
Okay. Okay.
But that was always that was always secondary to like making sure though. But what's the broader vision? What's the big thing he wants to say, and then making sure I'm helping bring that to fruition. So, for instance, for him, a huge thing is legacy, and also like the sins of the father. Dot dot dot. Like how the legacy that parents leave behind, how their children um, uh, deal with that. Especially fathers to sons. So.
Got it. Okay. Tell us a little bit about the legacy of Jim Crow.
The Legacy of Jim Crow, it is a short history book looking at the history of discriminatory laws
Oh, okay.
in the United States. It's for a middle grade high school audience primarily. And I would also say people where English is a second language, just because the language is pretty accessible, is written to be quickly digestible. The impetus for that came Penguin Workshop, who published the book. They were doing a series on sort of like looking at U.S. history from a non-traditional lens. And, for me, I've always just been like, okay, like if aliens were to come to our certain Black urban neighborhoods, they'd be like, well, do we not like to have like grocery stores? Do we not like like to have like nice new construction
No,
buildings? Do we have like
no.
is there a reason why we must have a liquor stores and everything? And there's a whole history behind how this happened, why this happened, and it was legally sanctioned initiatives, laws that has created the big inequities that we see. And so I just wanted to do something that for younger people would explain this is what this was, to explain what the concept of Jim Crow was, how, of course, it was enacted in the South, but even, again, the concept of things being Jim Crow has really permeated America. So,
Okay. Okay, Mr. Haynes, let's swing back to the new novel, The Ghosts of Gwendolyn Montgomery. Here's a compound question for you. How does it represent your thoughts on desire, and how can an unexamined past affect how we deal with intimacy?
okay. So both characters, Gwendolyn and Fonzie, are people who are figuring out. I would argue Fonzie is figuring out in many ways who he is, and Gwendolyn knows who she is, but she's really frightened to fully embrace that. And I think their approach to dating intimacy is reflective of where they are in life. And I do believe I wanted to show in sort of this roundabout, interesting way. Hopefully, people find it interesting. Is if we don't, I firmly believe that if you don't sit with your past, reckon with your past, go over the ways in which you were hurt, disappointed, particularly in when it comes to family dynamics. Fonzie was someone who was not fully seen or appreciated in the way he wanted to be appreciated by his mom, and that will then impact how you approach desire. And it's not a one size fits all. Not everyone is going to have the same reaction or work through things in the same way, but it will impact things, and it will get in the way of figuring out who you are, what you really want, what's best for you, what does your ideal life look like, what does ideal partnership look like. It'll help. I think we're fed so many things, ideas around partnership and romance that just aren't true, that just aren't really based on the primary romance that we should all be having, which is with ourselves. And I think once you sort of go within and sit with what makes you happy, what just feels right, what makes your spirit soar, then it becomes much easier to claim, connect with, embrace the folks who can support that. And I think sometimes people would be surprised as to who would be an ideal romantic partner or ideal whatever type of partner you want to have, if you really sort of let go of the stuff and the baggage and what everyone else is saying or whatever ways the past has hurt you. So that's my big underlying message with the book, even though it's not, I'm not beating people over the head with it. I'm kind of more like, well, pay attention. But the next book is a little bit more, I'm exploring this as well, and I'm definitely much. I would say it's much more overt theme. Whereas this is a little. I could see how it may feel like there's a more subtle presentation of these ideas in Gwendolyn Montgomery, but it's there.
Well, I must say, Mr. Winsome Wordsmith, that you said that quite well, and I must admit that I want a man with a bedroom voice, but that's neither here nor there.
I wish that for you as well, Wyatt.
I knew I liked you from the jump. Anyway, listen, before we bounce, tell us, how do we contact you, connect with you, follow you? Give us all of your social media, please.
I am on all the socials. I am Clarence A. Haynes. I am most readily found on Instagram. So again, that's Clarence A. Haynes, all one word, as you would find on the book. And yeah, send me a shout. Follow me. I engage with people. I love to talk with readers. It is my honor to be part of the book community. So it's not, I just don't like talk about like my book all the time. But I definitely love to support other authors and engage with readers and book influencers. And I'm a music person as well. So yeah, just reach out.
Cool. Mr. Clarence A. Haynes, thanks so much for dropping by. Wyatt, it is greatly appreciated.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Wyatt. This was great, and I wish you a wonderful holiday season.
You as well. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Yeah, so y'all, there you have it. You can find the official Wyatt podcast page at wyattevans.com, the go-to destination for LGBTQ plus news, features, commentary, and entertainment. Wyattevans.com is visited by more than 100 countries on the regular. All I can say to that is, hey, baby. And at wyattevans.com, you'll find my smoking hot, HAWT hot, Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. And as you just saw on the top, the newest installment is called Shattered. I said Shattered. And y'all, Shattered is full of action, danger, intrigue, sexually charged situations, passion, and all of the wonderful elements that you're used to in the Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. So get your new copy of Shattered. Now you can follow me, your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans, all across social media, and poof, is right there for you to peruse, like TikTok and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And if you have any comments or whatever, you can hit me up at wyattonair@gmail.com. So until next time, y'all, woof, goddammit, woof, 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 woof. I said woof.